Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras, and coming up in today's newscast, Israel's 35th government finally takes its seat. El Al Airlines begs the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for help, and Eurovision 2020 returns for a very special online showing. Now, unfortunately, we once again begin today's broadcast with news of an attack. An IDF soldier has been moderately to severely injured in southern Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank, near the settlement of Negohot, and the incident has been declared an apparent car ramming attack. The driver has reportedly been neutralized, likely meaning he's been shot by Israeli security forces, and his current condition, however, is not yet known. Now, the political gridlock in Israel ends today, and the 35th government coalition is swearing in after 3 elections and 18 months with an interim government. Prime Minister Netanyahu has inked the final coalition agreements with rival Benny Gantz's Blue and White, the Gesher and Labour parties, the Derech Eretz party, and the religious Shas and United Torah Judaism parties. And he has informed President Rivlin of his success. In a surprise last edition, though, Interim Education Minister Rafi Peretz from the Yamina party has defected in order to sit in the coalition. The rest of the Yamina party, under Chairman Naftali Bennett, will be joining the opposition. Also, Gesher's Orly Levy Abekassis will be taking up the role of Ministry of Community Strengthening and Promotion. But this position is newly created and ill-defined, so it's not yet clear what her duties will involve. Meanwhile, the Knesset confirmations tonight come just 10 days from the start of Prime Minister Netanyahu's criminal trial. He's been indicted on allegations of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust in 3 separate cases, in which hundreds of witnesses are called. Netanyahu denies any wrongdoing, but in part of the new unity deal, he will hopefully have more time to address the court, as Benny Gantz will be acting defense minister while also holding the title of prime minister, and he's set to take over for Netanyahu as full-time prime minister in 18 months, or sooner if Netanyahu needs to take time off to leave and address his legal issues. And now for more on politics, as the new coalition in Israel is inaugurated, we are joined by Mark Schulman, columnist for Newsweek and editor of HistoryCentral.com. Mark, it's always a pleasure to have you. Now, first, Yamina has now split up. Chairman Bennett said that the deal offered to him wasn't good enough to bring the entire party into the coalition, but then Rafi Peretz dropped out, arguably for less. Why do you think that is? Why did he leave the party behind?
Okay, so the relationships between Peretz and the rest of the Yamina party have been up and down over the last few elections. Don't forget, Yamina split from the National Religious, came back again. Peretz was the head, and now of course, Bennett is. Peretz has really not done a very good job and really wasn't well liked within the Yamina party. And I think he himself, Peretz, just really didn't like politics all that much. And he sort of felt better to just have some sort of job in the government. He gets along with Netanyahu, gets along with Gantz. Gantz and him are good friends. So he figured, let me just do something for the next couple of years. I'll be a minister. I'll do something. I don't really care about politics for the long term. I don't care what happens to the Yamina party. And at least I'll do something for the country. That's his perspective. Let's put it that way. I think that's what it's all about. In terms of the Yamina party, Bennett and Shaked have tried to be the alternative solution to the Likud. They haven't succeeded at all. They tried to be the non-religious far right. They tried to be the religious far right. And so now they're going to be in opposition. I mean, don't forget, part of this whole issue, of course, is the bad blood that exists between Netanyahu and Bennett, and between Ayelet Shaked and Netanyahu. Both of them used to work for Netanyahu. That's how both of them began their political careers. So we have a lot of personality issues at work here. There may be some ideological issues, but I really don't think so. I think one of the problems that Shaked, of course, had was giving the Blue and White the Justice Ministry. She's been trying to make these judicial reforms that she calls them judicial reforms. People on the other side think it's destroying the judicial system. But either way, giving it to Blue and White will stop all the things that she was trying to accomplish.
All right. Well, I want to move on now to the topic of government bloat, specifically Orly Levy Abekassis from the Gesher party. Her new position of Minister of Community Strengthening, which has no definition right now, and among the other 35 ministerial positions, there are several others that have never existed or really have limited scope. So what effect is this going to have on Israel's ability to govern?
It's very difficult. Let's look at it from 2 different perspectives. One, you have a cabinet that becomes an impossible entity, 36 members of a cabinet. How do you possibly get anything done in that sort of situation? B, you have all of these ministers that are stepping on each other's toes, taking over from one another in all sorts of different ways. We've created governments based on political needs. Let's go to something important for 2 seconds. Let's forget these new ones, which are really unimportant to some level. And look what happened to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Broken out from there, the ministry, the Strategic Affairs Ministry, the Diaspora Affairs Ministry, the Intelligence Ministry, all the things that were all part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that now they're all separate. So you have a foreign minister who commands theoretically all the consulates and embassies all over the world, but all the different parts of his divisions now belong to different ministers. And we've had this now for 6 or 7 years since Netanyahu started to need those different positions to give away to hold his coalition together. We've had this absurd system of government where in order to make people happy, they have to become ministers. And in order to make them ministers, we need more ministers than we really have. And of course, one of the other problems, of course, is cost. Now, the argument is made, well, it's less costly than another election, and on some levels that's true. But each one of these ministers has a deputy minister and a driver and a strategic affairs person and a PR person, maybe 20 or 30 people in a staff for every minister. It's unnecessary. Now, maybe in the short term, it's more expensive to have more elections, but if we keep these ministries forever, we keep on adding these expenses forever. Because once you have them, it's so hard to get rid of them. I mean, we look at Jewish history is full of organizations that never knew how to close, and we have ministries that never know how to close either.
All right, well, you've given us a lot to think about right now as we head into this new government. Mark, thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
Moving on, just 19 new cases of coronavirus in Israel have been reported in the past 24 hours, continuing a downwards trend in the country. 3 more deaths to the virus, however, brings the total up to 264. Just over 4,050 virus cases are still active in Israel, with 61 in serious condition, and over 12,230 have recovered. Meanwhile, in a major turnaround, virus testing has ramped back up. The Ministry of Health says it's processed over 7,100 virus tests on Tuesday alone, after earlier this week boasting numbers of just 3,000 to 4,000 out of 15,000 possible. A rise in testing is a welcome change, though, as more and more restrictions are rolled back amidst fears of a second outbreak. More schools and businesses are reopening every day. Wedding halls are set to open for up to 100 guests per event as soon as next week. International flights are also set to resume within a few weeks, and so are the national train services. Also, thousands of Israelis broke social distancing guidelines this week for the Lag BaOmer holiday and to attend the funeral of IDF soldier Amit Ben-Igal. Again, though, even with restrictions easing, it doesn't mean that there aren't new rules for keeping the healing trend in Israel going. In Ben Gurion Airport, for example, the newest guidelines are already being enforced as of now.
Actually, we are starting today the restart of the airport operation with all the new regulation, the health regulation of social distancing, face mask, terminal hall cleaning process, etc. We are monitoring and checking if the process and the new regulation fits to our needs, or actually to the passengers' needs.
Now, as the economy crumbles under the weight of coronavirus restrictions, thousands of tourism industry professionals are convening in Jerusalem to protest the government's failure to protect them. Well, joining us now with the details of their demands is Anat Harel, an Israeli tour guide who's coming to us immediately after the demonstrations. Anat, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
You know, you're the first guest we've had in here since all these
honored.
lockdowns have happened. I'm honored too. But now, how has the coronavirus affected your business in particular?
Well, I am an Israel tour guide, and my last tour group was in February. Wow. The middle of February, I spent about 8 days with a lovely family, and we started to hear that things were closing down. When they left and went back to the States, towards the end of February, my March groups were canceled, my April groups were canceled, my May groups, and June, everything's been canceled.
Are you typically booked, 6 months ahead like that?
Oh, yeah,
and they're all just indefinitely
gone. I have not made a penny since March 1st.
Wow. And so now what are you expecting from the government, from the Treasury ministries?
Well, what we want, actually, is to be treated like any other unemployed person to get unemployment benefits. I lucked out. I do not own a touring car. And so I actually got some unemployment benefits from the government, but there are many tour guides, those who are doing better or who did better, they actually own their touring cars, and they, for some weird reason don't get unemployment. So there are thousands of tour guides who have not gotten a shekel from the government since March.
And this is really just like an oversight in the language of the...
It's something that happened in the 1980s, and some of us fit under one criteria, and some of us fit into another.
So it's not even necessarily to do with the recent
Correct.
guidelines. Wow.
Correct.
All right. So, is there a way that you can get back to work as usual and still keep with health ministry guidelines?
Not at the moment, because at the moment, when a tourist arrives in Israel, they have to stay in isolation for 14 days. No one is going to do that. So right now, we are at zero tourists, zero work, nothing. Some of the tour guides are trying to get a little bit creative and maybe doing some virtual tours on Zoom and this. But that is not going to replace actual physical rocking the steps of Jesus or visiting the Western Wall, or, it's not going to replace that.
How, because we know that some flights are going to start hopefully returning within the next few weeks. We know that Israel is kind of joining with select other countries with really low COVID rates.
Yes.
How soon do you think foreign tourism will return to Israel?
Oh, if I knew that, I'd make $1 million. But no, see, nobody knows. I just, at the protest, I was talking to one of the managers of one of the boutique hotels in Israel. She says they're opening on July 1st. I said, do you really think you're going to have incoming tourism? She says, no, but we'll see. Maybe by then, maybe by then, maybe by then.
Plan for the best, in a
See,
way.
the problem is, it's such an unknown, we don't know. We don't really know.
All right, so now you mentioned virtual tours, virtual tourism, and things like that. Do you think that that's going to be the future for the next foreseeable future, for the next year or two at least?
No, I don't think so. Virtual tours don't do justice to tourism. It is a taste of this and a taste of that. It's fine to entice them to come, but we need tourists to come to Israel. Tel Aviv was number 2 on TripAdvisor's destination last year, and it is a culinary destination and a wine tour destination, and come on, this is the birthplace of Christianity and so forth. So we need tourists to come back, hopefully, because we are opening up more and more. What we want, what us tour guides want, is we want the government to help us out. We need them to address the crisis by creating a plan, a government-sponsored and financed plan of action. But we need them to work with us, because right now what's happening, they're working with El Al Airlines, which is amazing. They're working with the very large hotels, which is fine, and the very large tour operators. But us, the small business, the small tour guides, the boutique hotels, the culinary, the graffiti tours, the Jeep tours, we want to be at the table in order to create a plan of recovery.
All right, well, final message, anything you have to say to all the people watching abroad?
Yes. All of you watching, we have masks. We want you to come back to Israel. We're opening up, and hopefully come sooner than later, especially the small groups, the families. We are here, and we would love to welcome you back to Israel.
Anat, it is an absolute pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
All right, in other news, flights at Ben Gurion International Airport are set to resume within the next few weeks, but while air traffic will eventually go back to normal, the fate of Israel's El Al Airlines is uncertain. ILTV's Nittany Manson reports.
The head of Israel's national airline, El Al, is now personally appealing to Prime Minister Netanyahu, asking the premier to intervene on his company's behalf. Otherwise, CEO Gonen Osishkin says El Al will be forced into liquidation. The letter to Netanyahu comes just days after El Al received the final bailout plan offered by the Israel Ministry of Finance. And in it, the government agrees to vouch for up to 80% of a $400 million bank loan that El Al is requesting to help weather the coronavirus pandemic. But the government's guarantee comes with major strings and contingencies that El Al says they cannot possibly implement. Among them, firing 33% of staff in addition to a $50 million streamlining plan, which includes cutting salaries and ending all free flights for employees and their families. It would also require the owners to invest 100 million shekels of their own cash into the company. Again, though, Sishkin says this is too much, and that if Netanyahu doesn't do something, 10,000 households will lose livelihoods, 30,000 households would be indirectly affected, and billions of shekels owed to customers for canceled flights would be lost. Additionally, the government's call for a streamlining plan comes after El Al already presented one, in which liens are put on shares and controlling shareholders inject over 1.5 billion shekels per year for 7 years back into the company.
Moving on, 1 of 4 Israelis is now unemployed. This is the highest unemployment rate in Israel's history. But now it looks like those trying to get back into the market may have to compete in wholly new ways, because demands have changed considerably. Well, to understand how Israel is dealing with this crisis, we're joined by Dr. Vili Abraham, ILTV contributor and consumer behavior expert. Doctor, thank you so much for being with us. Now, how does this depression caused by COVID-19 compare to previous hits to the economy in Israel?
All right, so we're talking about very high unemployment. The unemployment rate has exceeded 10% only in 3 instances in Israel's history. It was just before the Six-Day War, during the big immigration from the former Soviet Union, and during the Second Intifada. These are the only 3 instances where the unemployment rate was above 10%, and it's expected to remain so until the end of the year. So it means that until the end of the year, for the next 6 months or so, we are expecting to see about 400,000 Israelis out of work.
Wow. So how much, can you quantify just how much the coronavirus epidemic has actually cost the Israeli economy?
Well, the estimates range between 50 billion shekels to 90 billion shekels, and this consists of the support to the unemployed, to businesses, and also as a result of lost tax revenue, because there were virtually no sales for about 6 to 8 weeks in many sectors.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about what the new economy is going to look like and how that's going to evolve as people start coming back to work. Are there positions that have completely disappeared from the Israeli economy now that we're not expected to have?
Well, I won't say that they've disappeared, but they're less in demand right now. So, of course, the tourism industry has been impacted significantly. There's less demand for store managers, shift managers, office workers, sales assistants, and, of course, waiter jobs. So these are less in demand right now. But if we're looking into the future, there are a lot of jobs that are going to be in greater demand. For example, people who are digital marketers, people who are programmers, if we're talking about the use of artificial intelligence and augmented reality. So what the future holds is actually more jobs for the tech savvy. So it means that people who are looking for, switching jobs or to retrain themselves, they better go into high tech.
So again, what do people with, maybe non-skilled laborers and all these people in small businesses, what are they supposed to do? What kind of positions might they should they maybe try to go for in the interim at least?
Well, in the interim, if you're looking at people who have worked as sales assistants and now they're unemployed, there are more and more jobs that are in search of social media managers, people who will write content, people who will upload content to Facebook or Instagram, whether it's managing the customer service through these platforms. So these jobs are in high demand right now. And I think this is a great opportunity for the government to retrain workers and to really go into more tech jobs. There's really not much you can do privately, but what you can do, there are a lot of online courses that provide courses in programming or digital marketing, and these are the type of courses that I would take. There are a lot of courses that Google provides, for example, and you get a certificate. So once you get the certificate, you'll be able to go and find a job. Wow. So it doesn't have to be really a formal degree or something.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Vili.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, now you might not know it because sadly fanfare has been mostly silent due to the coronavirus, but the 2020 Eurovision Song Contest was supposed to be held this week. And although the events won't be held as normal, the competition's spirit lives on online. This year, Eurovision will be non-competitive, and so no vote will actually be held. But the order of the performances has long since been decided, so the EBU has prepared several pseudo-semifinals to be broadcast live. The first was on Tuesday and includes the first 20 acts that were supposed to go on. And then the second showing that airs tonight will feature the second semifinal songs as well as the final Big Five. Also, both broadcasts include fan recaps, special live reactions by well-known YouTube creators, and exclusive home tours, and apparently even a couple cooking experiences. Meanwhile, other world broadcasters are also developing alternative and online programs for Eurovision, so there are plenty to choose from. And finally, the performances, which of course cannot be live, will consist of previous concerts like home country finals and several professional music videos. In other news, face masks. Everybody's got to wear one, but are you wearing yours the right way? And do you even have the right kind? Well, ILTV's Nittany Manson hit the streets of Tel Aviv to find out if Israelis have the answers.
Masks. We're supposed to wear them, but does anyone really know which way? So the mask that you're wearing, do you wear it with the blue side out or the white side?
White side in, blue side out.
Yes, the blue inside.
Okay.
I think so.
And the blue.
Blue outside,
Blue outside, why?
because that's the way.
I saw a movie yesterday in the news. They said, I think the colorful side is supposed to be outside and the white side is supposed to be to the front, like that. And then like that or something.
Blue, I see yours is blue on the outside. How do you know that blue goes on the outside?
I don't. I think like everyone does it, so that's why I did it, I guess.
With the blue,
Why?
because that's the right way to do it.
How do you know?
That's what they told me in the super farm.
אני לא בטוח, אבל נראה לי שכחול בפנים, לבן בחוץ.
Blue, obviously blue. Look, you can even see, somebody asked me this. There's the little glue spots over here. So the glue spots are supposed to be on the inside. You have to open it. I learned that the hard way. You have to open it, and then you put it, and then you squeeze the little metal thing right here. And then all your makeup gets on the inside, and that's how you can see how you're wearing so much makeup. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Some said blue, some said white. So we turned to an expert to get the real answer.
Few important things about the mask. First, wear it with the color outside. The color can be green, blue, or pink. We are wearing it with the color outside because the white part of the mask is designed to absorb all the aerosol that we're producing while we're breathing. Second thing about the mask is wearing it. Please wear the mask to cover between the bridge of the nose until the bottom of the chin. After wearing it, press the metal part of the mask to match it to your face. Please replace it with the new one.
And there you have it.
Up, like this, very nice.
Now for our final story tonight, let's turn the clock back about 11,500 years to the Neolithic period, because Israeli researchers in excavations in Turkey have just discovered new secrets about one of the world's oldest temples. What is mankind's first great achievement? Well, besides discovering fire and the wheel, one might argue that the answer is agriculture. But it turns out that highly sophisticated architecture takes the cake, and archaeologists from Tel Aviv University are now detailing why. Professor Avi Gofer and PhD candidate Gil Haklai have been studying the massive temple of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, and they say that this monumental temple is not only among the world's oldest, but it also shows an extraordinary understanding of city planning and building development, which at the same time predates agriculture and even pottery. In fact, it predates the Egyptian pyramids by roughly 6,500 years. And researchers at the site detail beautiful relief sculptures and carvings featured on dozens of massive limestone pillars arranged in at least 20 concentric rings. Also, construction on the structure, which employs unique design rules, is estimated to have taken centuries, if not more, to complete. But finally, the Israelis' unique findings have since been published by the Cambridge Archaeological Journal. And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight we end the week with a wonderfully warm and clear night. The low should sit at about 69 degrees Fahrenheit or 21 Celsius. Then the heat wave in Israel is expected to ramp up over the weekend with sunny skies and highs of 93 on Friday and 98 Saturday, or 34 and 37 degrees respectively. And before we go, of course, let's take a look at what's going viral in Israel. She is amazing, hands down. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.53 shekels to the American dollar, For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku TV pages. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you so much for watching.